Welcome to the church, volume 2. Exclusive 213. Got my nephew Nate Dogg in the house. Nate Dogg, holla at him, where you at?
Riding in my car. And I'm listening to
The art of constructing effective and balanced CrossFit programming, an advanced level or an outlook on it. Okay, so up until this point, we've had the beginner, we've had the intermediate, we've had a day-by-day breakdown of how do we get gymnastics, weightlifting, monostructural, obscure loadings and variations to within a day-to-day training schedule. This is a macro view of how do you actually even get to the conclusion of developing something for a single session. Every good program needs a North Star, in my opinion. Every life force needs a good North Star. Like, why are we doing anything? And for this, for lack of a better reasoning to have a North Star in CrossFit, my choosing is the CrossFit Games. And the CrossFit Games, generally speaking, is around August, it could be late July, August, every single year. So the calendar year basically starts there, finishes there. And I work my way back from that. So I have a 12-month depiction of what I would like to happen at the Games, or at least understanding the themes of what needs to be happening physiologically for an athlete come Games time. So whether you are or you're not there, just giving you the exposures of what it's like to be that type of athlete, train the same patterns and modalities that I would consider applicable for this. And if you're a borderline semifinals athlete or something like in this region, the fact that you go through that cycle every year, and we've seen it through our community, that they have become accustomed to it, that they have been spit out here, and when they were there, they were actually prepared as well, season number 1. So it's like you're going to get different tests along the way, understanding what the test is. And that's something that we speak on so much, and I'll say that again, understanding what the test is. So the test at the CrossFit Games is different from the test at semifinals, is different from the test at quarterfinals and the Open. Yes, as a CrossFitter, you might have different competitions all throughout. I mean, there's Waterpalooza here, there's a second Waterpalooza now. Over here, there's Dubai up here in December. What else am I missing? The big 3 games, Dubai, Wusa, sing out if I'm not there. I'm in Oceania, so we have Down Under Champs around November, December as well, which is a pretty big event. And yeah, there's a bunch of qualifiers through different portions of these sections as well. Generally, this part is kept free because this is the most important thing in the CrossFit realm. So understanding the test. If I'm an open athlete and I'm looking to get to the quarterfinals, I understand that this here for me is going to be all end all. I'm not going through this if I'm struggling to know that I'm going to be in the bottom or top 25%. I know that there's probably no chance I'm going to make it to the semifinals this season. So my efforts and energy go into the CrossFit Open and what type of constructs that they show here. So based off of, we'll take one sample size, 2024, we had 3 workouts. In WOD 1, we had dumbbell snatch, burpees, I would say basic, right? It was anywhere between 6, and I would say the qualifying times for quarterfinals of around about 12 minutes. Number 2, you had 20-minute time domain, 20 minutes of row, moderate distance, deadlifts, double unders? What? Yeah, deadlifts first. Deadlifts for 10 reps, and then 50 dubs. And then number 3, the complexity grew dramatically. 5 rounds of the thruster and chest bar, and then 5 rounds thruster, heavier, and bar muscle up. So with the sample size, you have a total of 8 different movements only 8 movements out of the potential 1,000 that you could choose from. The construct for it is more about fitness than heavy weight. We didn't get given a 1 rep max or a weight that progressively built to an unachievable number for, you know, the majority. So that wasn't a factor. The strongest people here didn't survive. It was about gas tank, and then obviously the complexity here for the bar muscle ups as well, high skill capacity, and also the chest to bars in that matter. But if you wanted to make the top 25%, you could get here and not do a bar muscle up. So it was pretty lenient. If I was to understand that that's my goal, there might be things that I might swipe off the table. If my training time was a currency, so let's say I had $10 of training time and an allowance to spend in a week, and back squats, front squats, clean, deadlift, pull up, running, handstand push up, rope climb, so RC for rope climb, dead ball, wall ball, RMU, ring muscle ups, snatch, dumbbell, say devil's press. Let's just take this as an example. So I've got all these movements here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now these are just a really small outlet of what the potentiality of the movements could be. I've got $10. Each one of these movements is worth $1 of training time currency. So I have to leave at least 3 off the table. If I know that I'm going to be here and I need to achieve there, the 3 that I'm looking at the table here, okay, cool, dead ball, they've never had it in the open, so I might just scrap that. They've never had it in the open. Will they have it in the open? Likelihood is probably not. This accessibility to getting that many dead balls into affiliates is not super achievable. Plus the fact that just the loading itself, like how are we going to go through the loadings to make sure that everyone's dead ball's the same, different branding, different things. Like there's just so many different variations and variables that can't be factored in for that to be an online workout. A 3,000 meter run, like that's probably not going to be there either, because we can't guarantee that you can measure out and get the exact same distance as everyone else. The shuttle runs are now a thing. We've seen that up to about 1.5k of shuttle runs, 1.2, I can't remember the number, in the Masters age groups division last year semi-finals. But again, that's only in shorter stride increments. So running, like, is that going to be important to me? I don't know. Rope climbs, if I'm in the open, no, or at least not yet. Devil's press, no, haven't been there yet. And then what we just learned, bar muscle ups, we didn't need one to get to the quarterfinal, so I might swipe ring muscle ups off the table, and I might subjectively look at rowing 2 sessions a week. So I'll spend $2 on rowing, and I might spend $1 on deadlifts. I might spend $1 on double unders. Burpees, for whatever variation that they give us, I might give $2 to that, $1 to dumbbell snatch, $1 to my thruster, and we'll say $1 to my chest to bar. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got $1 more to spare. It might be thrusters again or chest to bar, one of the two, or I might put it into a different skill completely. But you get the picture. And it's not that this is going to be the same 8 movements that are there next year, but you can really confine it down to a few specifics and get general variation within those specifics that are going to help your training towards that goal, to getting that outcome. Then once you get into that outcome, it's almost as if, like, well, let's say you spent $9 there, but you spent the $10th on GHDs, because you are keeping as much of what you can spent on the thing that's most relevant for you, but then you're just drip feeding the thing that's about to come, or the next step in progression in your journey. So we know that this opens up a whole different plethora of skills: GHDs, pistols, rope climbs, wall facing handstand push-ups, handstand walking. And it's not like that those things haven't been here as well. It's just that the abundance and the probably more certainty that they will be there is far more likely. A conversation that I've heard so many people, and these are athletes, speak about the Open, and they probably didn't get the scores that they wished that they had hoped for, and they were like, oh yeah, can't wait for the quarterfinals because that's when the skill and the weightlifting is going to come out. And it's like, well, for one, if it does, I hope you get what you're asking for, so then it can show yourself on a leaderboard how fit you are. Two, that's an area of work. What if you got given the same thing that's spit out again? Just to go into an assumption that this is going to be this, that this is going to be this, and this is going to be that. CrossFit is forever trying to make you think it's going to be one thing and give you something else. You kind of know what you're going to get for dinner. You know that chicken's for dinner. You just don't know how it's going to be cooked. Is it going to be Thai coconut chicken? Is it going to be flame grilled chicken? Is it going to be a chicken burger? Is it going to be chicken on rice? Like, we just don't know. You kind of know the themes, and I think it's just trained to the themes. One thing remains true. It always pays to be good at fitness. It's cardio that has the biggest derivatives off into the other components of CrossFit and the competition of it. Like if you, let's say somebody can do 10 ring muscle ups and another person can do 4 ring muscle ups, and the workout had 30, and this was a guaranteed every time, and this depleted big time when paired or coupled with 10 clean and jerks at 60 and 40 kilos, the compromising fact for this person, because they're strong and skillful, might outweigh the fact, or you might have a 400 meter run in there, that the person that does 4 ring muscle ups could get to that target faster. Generally, this person is far more adaptive to being able to replenish, recover, and reproduce the same output, rather than this person going 10 on set 1, and then 6, and then 2s, and then 1s, and then 1 plus fail, and this person goes 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. That's how the fitness type of thing, prevails in CrossFit. So anyway, back to the programming. I like to look at it as a construct of like, what's the test? At quarterfinals, you can understand that there should be more skill, there should be more strength. However, you have to have a certain amount of fitness. The condensed time of being able to do those workouts. So you need we had a training block, which was a simulator training block, which simulated these workouts. It wasn't them directly, but it was putting ourselves into themes of, okay, I need to turn up with this type of intensity. I've only got 1 bullet in the chamber. I get 1 shot. I have to make a headshot. So that being said, I don't want to get to the Open to use that as preparation of how am I going to compete in fast fitness for when I get to the quarterfinals. I want to have some preparatory work done in this bracket here, at least a wee way away from this, to see engage my confidence and just manipulate it how I can see fit to make it match this. And every single time I'm training for a certain marker, let's say I'm training for the games, I've only got a finger on the pulse. I've got a finger on the pulse of it, but my hand is held here. Or if I'm training for the semi-finals, my hand is held here, finger on the pulse. Right now in this sport, nothing's for free. Nothing's a given. So it's not the case that someone can just train for this and you might miss this step. So you have to be very cautious about how you do that. It's more of like an 80-20% method. 80% of my focus is going to be here. I've been here many times, but nothing's given. I need to make sure that I can bank that throughout. And I think in the Open division especially, but outside of that, like the age group stuff is probably a little bit different. Looking at the total training volume in a year. So where's going to be our most difficult training? We'll start it with our easiest. Our easiest training section should be in here. Backed off season. That's what off season is. A pre-season is preparatory to the season. So I'd like to think like starting, at least initiating that here in December, working through January. That gives you a good 8-week block before you hit February, where the Open kind of starts. And if you're an athlete that's trying to be at semi-finals, you're only 2 or 3 good training blocks away from your test here at the quarterfinals. Between the quarterfinals and semi-finals, there's not a huge chunk of time to get a full training block in. So you almost have to condense this window down into one strong block. For us, over this period of time, in 2024, this was 13 weeks, from first open to semi-finals week number 2. There's only one final week after that, so we have to, like, what are you going to do? You're going to train for the open, and then when the open finishes, do a 4-week training block for quarterfinals, but you have to have a deload in there as well and a decompress from the open, and then do a 4-week or 3-week block into the semi-finals. Like, it's kind of a bit stop-starty and jerky. How do you develop well enough? How do you develop certain things in only 3-week little snippet time frames? And you can, but many things have to go off the table to do so. So there is, what can I pull up as an analogy? There's a Russian squat program where you'll squat 4 days a week. 4 days a week squat program. And it's only for 3 weeks. And we can see, you know, anywhere between a 5 to 10% increase depending on what type of threshold you're at as an athlete, which is huge. That's a super substantial marker in 3 weeks. The problem is in that 1 week's worth of training, you've got 4 days dedicated to the squat. You can't then go and do a 100 thruster workout, you know, 10 rounds of 30 cal bike sprint, heaps of heavy deadlifts and whatever, as well as that, to make sure that that's going to be given its full intention and purpose to develop, as well as not being exposed to injury from overload, and then just biting the or burning the candle at both ends, so to speak. So I think a concept that I'd like you to understand is, let's take the world's best 5-kilometer runner. That 5-kilometer runner is going to be somewhere around, I think it's sub 15, like 3-minute K. So let's say sub 15, minus 15 minutes. Let's take the world's best back squatter, 1 rep max back squatter. And this squat is going to be somewhere around, I think, like 480 to 520. I'm a bit out with my touch on what's happening in the sport of powerlifting, but in CrossFit, we're trying to push this way and push this way. Now tell me the person who squats 520 or 480 kilos, whatever it is, how close are they to being the best 5-kilometer runner in the world? Not remotely. Not even remotely. They probably wouldn't even be in the top 10%, sorry, the top 10%, the top 90%. So they'd probably be in the bottom 90 percentile. The runner, same thing. So they're pushed, they're two different ends of the spectrum here. Now, in CrossFit, we're like, well, we want to get stronger at back squatting, we want to get faster at running. You can't just do, well, I'll just run and squat and run and squat and run and squat and run and squat. It doesn't work like that. You're going to be giving the same adaptation points, per se, for lack of a better term, adaptation points to the back squat, to the run, and your muscles are going to be like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to get stronger, or do you want me to lean off and get faster? Do you want fast twitch fibers and be explosive, or do you want slow twitch fibers and be endurance based? Because that's what those sports require. So reality is that you kind of have to leave one off. So let's say that 5K run and 1 RM back squat is there, and you sit here, you've got to say like, hey, for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, I'm just going to stretch out as far as I can, and I get to here. Cool. Then the next 8 weeks, I'm going to try and stretch this out, and I'll get that to here. But by doing that, I reduce this to here, right? But now I've made up this window, and I've still got this. Is that right? Yeah. Sorry, that window and this. So you're making gains in the right direction, but you just have to have different focal points. And that is where the timeline comes into play. So, that being said, what is important and when is it important? We now know that it is not important to be strong there. It is important to be fit there. So maybe January, December looks like fitness. in here, always, this is where we regain bodily health function, plus we work on the skills and the super weaknesses that we have. So if my squatting was a weakness of mine, and 8 weeks could get me, let's say, this is 10 points, at 8 weeks could get me 3 of what I'm trying to achieve, it's not enough, right? So, okay, that was January and December. They're out. I need November and October to get another 3 points, so that's going to bring me all the way up to here. And then, oh, not enough. Okay, well then 8 weeks back from that, I'm now in August. Cool. I got my squat design. It took me 24 weeks. And then now I can kind of focus into what I need in here without interrupting it. And yes, like it's not like you pick something up and you leave the other thing completely off the table. It might not just be you do running every week. It might be once every second week. It might just be keeping a tab on where it's at. And look, we've had athletes that, and even right now I've got athletes that I have not doing any certain something that we already know that they're so good at. And let's say that their pie graph, I don't know what this traditional graph is called. Let's say it looks like this. And this is bar muscle ups, and this is rowing, and this is running, and this is squatting, and this is pressing, and this is wall balls. It's pretty easy to identify, the low bricks on the wall. So why don't we knock off some of the rowing, and let's say that this is the level of competency here. Let's knock off some of the rowing to put it onto the bar muscle ups and put that into another session and just take off the top end of the rowing. And that's the beautiful thing about understanding the CrossFit construct and what they're looking for to test and what the athlete's archetype should be by the time they get put out, on the floor for those tests. Arnold Schwarzenegger said it best when, from Pumping Iron, it's building a bodybuilder per se is like having clay and molding it and sculpting it the way that you want to. Oh, the traps are too small, add a little bit of clay and just sculpt it there. The biceps are too small, and mold it and put it there. And for me, I was brought up in an era where fitness was kind of inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I've always had those concepts and thoughts along the way. And I treat that the same with programming. Okay, this requires you to be strongest and your fittest. And I would say most adaptable. So with that, it means that we want to mold that clay and put that into your legs for the squat strength. We want to put your fitness into like odd objects of swimming, biking, and things like that. And those are tests that you can't get back here. Trek bike, how well can you trek bike? Well, I don't know. I never had to do it, so I never train it. Well, yeah, all of a sudden you're a quarterfinals athlete and you're trying to get to semifinals. There's no point because you're also not going to see it till here. All of this is going to be online. So understanding the test and just understanding where to put your time in. Between here and here is generally about 8 weeks or so. You need a good week's worth of deload to recover for that. And I think just to start on that aspect alone, I think to start with that is a lot. I see it for the last 4 years. When we're there, the athletes are training too hard, too close. The taper back isn't enough for my liking, at least. And when you put a lot of those athletes in the same environment, especially days out from the comp, program says come in, do 60%, just feel the barbell, move it, get a good position. You're just trying to get familiarity and consistency. You're not trying to get stronger or fitter at that point. And someone comes in like 60%, cool. Oh, there goes blah, blah, blah. That's a pretty big name on the wall. Let me show them 70%. That felt good. Of course it feels good. Let me show them 80%. And all of a sudden, you're now pulling up on day one with like, oh yeah, I just feel my hammy a little bit, I just feel my hammy and I can feel those pull-ups I did the other day. I probably did a couple too many. You shouldn't get to race day feeling like, oh, this, that, the next thing. You should be laser focused. A dog needing to be let out the cage. Like, frick, bro, just let me run. I just need to get out there. So that's like another whole conversation altogether. Again, in this section here, you're looking at off-season building blocks, whether that's just basic strength blocks. In CrossFit, you get a whole lot of mixed myriad gymnastics principles and movements that get layered in each year, so then like it gives a good chance just to highlight those and have a crack at them. I think what's pretty funny for me is watching at the games for the first time when they put in the double under crossover skips, and to be fair, it wasn't successful. You know, like to be as spontaneous as that, like just to assume that people can pick up such a difficult skill immediately when only told just then and there, I think that's a pretty tough ask at times, and that failed for me. Now what was funny to me was by the time we got to the 2023 quarterfinals, I seen so many people on social media in this block here, January, February, March, doing double under crossovers, getting prepared for the quarterfinals as if they were going to be in the quarterfinals to get them to semifinals. If it wasn't successful there, it is no way that they're going to put it there to make you qualify for this. Now, they might put it here. Fast forward time, they had single under crossover skips. Cool, beautiful skill to add. Double under crossover skips, we haven't seen them since. So they were at the games, they weren't at the quarterfinals the following year, semifinals, and then also the games the following year. From this, so a 12-month window, we've never seen them, but yet we see people train them arduously. And like, yes, it is the skill, but if I've got my time currency, I'm probably not even spending any on it until I'm like a top 10% bracket here in semifinals, maybe top 20%, and pushing into the games, because I'm just wasting valuable training time. If you look at the games historically, it's never the strongest person doesn't win generally. Raw strength at that. The most skillful person, so the person that has that wheelhouse workout that they can win, doesn't generally win the CrossFit Games. But the fittest person has the recovery rate to be able to lift 90% more frequently, has the ability to get up for those ring muscle ups that we talked about, those sets of 4. And then just the other application that is now prominent and true in CrossFit is adaptability coming from your movement pattern. So how well is your body conditioned to be able to perform the skills that are required? The younger generation, it's a whole different ballgame. What we're going to see in another 5-10 years time is completely different to what we've seen now. All of their joint health is going to be similar across the way. So the patterns and positions will be faultless, meaning that they can get into those gymnastics movements and the new nuanced movements that they introduce at a much faster rate. So we've talked about periodization, and it has to have a North Star. The North Star for us is just the games. As an affiliate, that's how you keep things interesting. Like, how do you have warbles every single week but not make it different and fun? Like, you have to think of these ways to think of concepts, learning tools, teaching your people about what you're trying to develop, and actually putting it to and through the test. With that comes clear goals. Again, we've sectioned off probably half a year, or what's August the 8th month, so 8th month. The 9th month, you've got your off season, get your health back, less time in the gym, more recovery focused. Different times of the year we're going to require for different emphases on nutrition and recovery, or be a little bit more lenient. Competition preparation, and just seasonal variation and making it stimulating. So training volume might be more in here and then less over here, and so forth. So that's an advanced level of programming. It's a macro scale of like the periodization of how to program. It's not necessarily, day by day by day, but it's how does an 8-week block look? How do I connect week 1, day 1 into week 4, day 1, week 5, day 6? How does that marry and merge together as this kind of beautiful constructing picture or beautiful art? And that's the way I like to look at it. So hopefully you've learned something there in this little 3-part series of beginner, intermediate, and advanced level programming. And if you've missed something, go back to one of the other videos, and no doubt it'll have more referencing in there. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate just to call out, and hopefully I can get those answered for you.